Hello everyone! Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I realize it's been quite some time since I posted a video onto my channel, so I thought this would be a great time to post another video, especially now that we're hitting the end of the year, 2022. I thought it would be great to make a video about my goals for 2023, especially for language learning. There's been a lot of videos that are being posted on YouTube or even using Facebook, just different forms of social media, and people are posting their goals for the year, whether it's language, educational related, or it's related to their health, it's related to their business goals. You know, everyone's coming up with things that they want to work on to better themselves for the next year. So I thought it'd be a good idea for me to think of one of those as well for my language journey for 2023. And I want to specifically tell people about my thought process when it comes to how I choose languages I want to learn and my reasons behind choosing that. And then also how I specifically go about studying those languages, how I create my own study plan. I realize everyone has their own methods for studying languages and everyone is different, you know, different plans work for different people. And I've realized through my research and just watching different videos that I have a difficult time trying to study languages in a very controlled format. Because a lot of people, the type of plan that really works for them is they create a plan, you know, every single day of the specific languages they're going to study, how many hours they're going to study, you know, what specific resources they're going to use, which chapters they're going to study. And for me, that gets very overwhelming to make a specific schedule of what I'm going to do, because if I miss one day, then I have to find a way to make that up. And my schedule is very unpredictable. There's just times where something comes up or I just get easily distracted. So for me, it's easier to just create my own plan that I know that I can still be making progress, but without feeling like I need to be doing something specific every single day. And I'll let you know more about that plan later on in this video. The first thing that I need to do when creating my language goals for 2023 is to figure out what languages I'm interested in learning. So the way that I make that decision is two things. One of those things is where I'm going to be traveling. And I'm going to be traveling a lot more next year compared to the previous years. And so that will be a big influence on what languages I'm interested in learning. And then the second one is just my daily activities or the hobbies that I participate in. There's a large influence with languages, with the activities that I do. Starting with travel, places that I know that I'll be going to. So for next year, I'll be going to Japan at the end of January, beginning of February. I'll be going to Vietnam and Taiwan in April, May. I'll be going to Canada. I'll be going to Mexico. And then the last place that I know that I'm going to is Singapore. These places I'm going to, they're for a variety of different reasons. Like Japan, I'm just going to for fun. I just haven't been there since the beginning of COVID, and I really want to go back. And I have a lot of connections. I have a lot of friends there. So I really want to go, you know, meet people again and also just be a part of that culture again. For Vietnam, I'm going there. It's actually for my schooling. I am studying traditional Chinese medicine, and there is an externship happening where we can work at a hospital and we can follow the doctors there and work with the patients. So I will be in Vietnam for a few weeks. And then because I just happen to be in the area, I'm gonna hop by Taiwan for a week just for fun. And then the reason why I'm going to Canada is for Kyudo. I do Japanese archery. And so that's when our next seminar is going to be. And then I'm going to Mexico because I'm going to do a get together with a group called Hippo Family Club. And this is a nonprofit organization based off of language acquisition. I'm going to be going to Singapore because that is where the next Polyglot conference is going to be. This year it was in Mexico, and that was a lot of fun, which convinced me to want to go next year. Now that I know that those are the places that I want to go, then I can start doing some research on, you know, what languages are commonly spoken there. Some languages, for example, like Japan, it's going to be more intuitive that the language that is commonly spoken there is Japanese. But in other countries, like let's say even Vietnam, even though the most common language there is Vietnamese, there's different dialects of Vietnamese. So like there's northern style, there's southern, there's central. And depending on where you're going, you may decide you want to learn one style over the other. So for me, I am going to be going to Hanoi, which is the northern region of Vietnam. So maybe it would make sense to study northern Vietnamese, but where I live in San Jose, the Vietnamese population more speaks southern dialect. So I have to make the decision of kind of which direction I want to go because the sounds are different. And from what I've been told, it's better to learn northern style because the pronunciation is a little bit easier for American speakers. So my thought was I would start off with the northern style and then maybe hopefully later on, so if I want to study a different dialect, it will be a little bit easier since I have some basic understanding of one dialect. Mexico, also same thing where it's a little bit more intuitive. You know, most people there speak Mexican Spanish. So, you know, that's one of the languages I want to focus on. Countries like Taiwan and for Singapore, they have a lot more languages that are considered their home language. So this is what I do. I'm going to show it to you on my computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look up something really, simple, which is, what are the most common languages spoken in, let's start with Taiwan. You'll get different resources that pop up. As you see here, it tells you all the different national languages that are spoken in Taiwan. So there's, Taiwanese Mandarin, Hokkien, there's Hakka, and there's all these different, smaller languages, of course. The main percentage of people speak either Mandarin, Hokkien, or Hakka. I've been trying to study Mandarin. I've always been focusing on other languages, so I would prefer to stick with studying Mandarin and trying to improve that skill before trying to branch out to other dialects like Hakka. I think that would be interesting to learn, but I think for now I want to stick to a bigger language like Mandarin, and then once I get that down to more of like an intermediate level, then it will be easier for me to learn kind of the other dialects like Hakka or Hokkien. So Singapore, so we can say, same thing, what are the most common languages spoken in Singapore? Then we'll get our list here. I guess we'll stick with Wikipedia for now. As you can see, there's English, Mandarin, other Chinese dialects, Malay, Tamil, and other. But so for me, I'm not so worried about the English. And Mandarin, nice thing is that coincides more with the language I want to learn for Taiwan. I realized I forgot to mention Canada. So Canada, when you do the research on that, because I actually did that a little earlier, the main languages you're going to see are, English, you're going to see French, but Canadian French, you're going to see Mandarin and Cantonese, actually. That's a big part of their population. So, English, I don't have to worry about. French, I'm already learning French, but I'm specifically learning France French, which I know is different than Canadian French. But I think, again, the French that I'm learning right now is a good basis to start off with. And then over time, then I can start learning about the differences between Canadian French and France French. And then when you look at my daily activities, like I mentioned, I do Kyudo. So that's, a big reason to continue doing Japanese. I like watching a lot of TV. I especially like watching a lot of like Korean variety shows. So that's, good reason for me to keep studying Korean. Knowing the different daily activities that I do gives me a basis of which languages to kind of keep building, or, things that I've been interested in, then I can learn more about those languages. So the second thing that I have to do, but once I decide what languages I want to study, I have to plan how I'm going to study it. So for certain languages like Japanese, I already have a strong foundation in it. My biggest problem is how do I get from an intermediate level to a more advanced level? And so I have to, create a plan for how I'm going to do that. And so for Japanese, I realized after taking the Japanese language proficiency exam, the JLPT, I took that also in December of this year. And what really was surprisingly difficult for me was the listening. I thought it was not going to be that bad because I was taking the N3, so I thought it was going to be more reasonable for me, but it actually ended up being much more difficult than I imagined. Then I created a goal for myself to practice more listening. So to watch more anime or to just watch more TV shows, listening to Japanese more, since that's the area that I struggle with the most. But I'm not going to try to create a schedule of, okay, every day I'm going to do this. Like I said before, it's difficult for me to stick to a schedule and tell myself what to do every single day. So what I end up doing is creating a bigger like a bigger goal for myself. So I say, okay, my plan is to take the JLPT, N2 next year, assuming that I pass the N3 from this, past, few weeks ago. And so having that in my head, it pushes me and sort of forces me to prepare myself for the exam. And I know what resources I have. So what I suggest people to do is see what resources you have and just make a list of all the resources you have available to you. Like I have a bunch of JLPT study books, but I also have a lot of, Japanese manga. I also have a lot of novels in Japanese, things like that. So I have these different resources that I have that I can use to help me study. And then I just decide, whenever I decide I want to study, then I can choose which resource I want to use. But I kind of give myself goals to work towards that are more reasonable for me. So for example, for French, when I started studying French, which was maybe only 3 or 4 months ago, when I really started intensely studying it, I had no background in French. I knew zero French. Like all I could say was bonjour and like omelette du fromage. Like that's all I could say. And so I, 3-4 months ago, I contacted a tutor on italki to see if he could help work with me to help me study French and actually prepare me for the DELF A1 exam in December. And so I studied, twice a week with the tutor and studied on my own on the off days, but it pushed me to study it until I got to the exam date in December. So I studied constantly for 3 months until the exam and I passed it. So even though in, 3 months, this, really short amount of time, but I really focused and put my effort into it because I had signed up for all these lessons. I actually bought a package. I bought a package of 20 lessons. So I was like, okay, well, I spent this money, so I have to put in the effort to study it. And then I signed up for the DELF exam. So that was another commitment of, okay, like you've spent this money on the lessons and the tests. So now it's up to you to put in the effort to, to learn as much as you can. So those things really helped me to get myself to the next level with French. So that's kind of how I think about how I study languages. So I'll choose the language, I'll make a list of resources of what I have available. And then from there, I'll start, creating these kind of bigger goals that I can work towards that push me, that motivate me to reach those goals. And then I can study however I want using whatever resources for however long that I want to, study. I don't put parameters around that. So that is what I do personally to get myself ready to study languages. I actually ended up deciding that it would be much easier if I just wrote out my language plan in advance and then I could just show it to you and just explain it really quickly about my thought process. I ended up typing it up on my computer here. So I just wrote here on the top like the languages that I'm focusing on. So I have 6. I have Japanese, Vietnamese, French, Spanish, Chinese, and Korean. With each language, I wrote some goals that I have that I want to work on. So for example, Japanese, I want to be able to pass the JLPT N2, which is the Japanese language proficiency exam, and I want to pass that next year in December. That's assuming that I pass the N3 this year. And also, based off of taking the N3, I realized that my listening skills were a big issue. So I really want to work on improving that. So I want to be able to watch and understand a Japanese show or even playing like a Japanese like video game, like an RPG, and not have subtitles. You know, those were my general goals for Japanese. I wrote down my available Japanese resources. So resources that I currently own and have used before, or just things that I have access to that I have used before. So, you know, I've written down like listen to the Hippo CDs, the, you know, studying from the JLPT study books I have, different YouTube content that I've watched before, or even finding new content. I wrote down a list of things. It's not exhaustive, but it just gives me a sense of what resources I have available. The idea is I have goals that I want to work on, and so I did the same thing with Vietnamese and created a list of resources. Same thing with French, Spanish, Chinese, and Korean. And so a lot of my goals are based off of just being able to like watch and understand some show or some content without subtitles, or taking proficiency exam, or like even being able to read through a book, which, as I mentioned before, I'm trying to do that like in a group setting, so that's more motivating. That's how I go about kind of creating like a basic language plan. And then from there, then I just use what resources that I want to use. You know, every day is a different day, so I just, you know, choose a language that I want to work on that day, choose whatever materials I want to use, and then I just go for it. And you know, for some people that maybe, you know, that's a difficult thing to do, and they need more of that structure. And I think for some people that's a very, very helpful method. But for me, it's more challenging. So that's why something like this is a lot easier for me to create goals, like taking a language proficiency exam, or, you know, working on being able to order at a restaurant when I'm at Vietnam. And so like those goals will help push me to just study the language in however way I want to study and get to that point in the language that I want to get to. So hopefully you got to get a sense of how I study languages, and hopefully that gives you some ideas as well. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like my channel, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye.